Dr. Sarah Peddle stood at her workstation in the Titan Deep Space Observatory, watching streams of data flow across her quantum displays. After 15 years of scanning the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, the universe had finally answered, but not in the way anyone had expected. The massive alien fleet had appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 hours ago, their energy signatures unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Yet Sarah felt no fear, only anticipation. She'd helped design the systems they'd been quietly building for this exact moment. Status report, came Admiral Chen's voice through the secure quantum channel. The Admiral's hologram materialized beside Sarah's station, her expression carefully neutral. The Archon fleet is maintaining position just beyond Neptune's orbit, sir, Sarah reported, gesturing at the tactical display. 27 capital ships, approximately 300 support vessels. Their energy output suggests technology at least 3 centuries ahead of what we've publicly demonstrated. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. And our countermeasures. The quantum mesh is fully operational. As far as their sensors can tell, we're still using fusion drives and chemical rockets. The planetary defense grid appears to them as a scattered network of primitive satellites. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They think they're dealing with a species that just reached Mars. In reality, humanity had colonies across the solar system, hidden beneath layers of quantum camouflage that bent both space and light. Their true fleet lay dormant in subspace pockets, ready to emerge at a moment's notice. The quantum AI networks that manage Earth's defense grid had processing power that would make the aliens' jaws drop, if they knew it existed. They're broadcasting again, Sarah announced as new data streamed in. Same message as before, demanding our immediate surrender and integration into their benevolent empire as a protectorate species. She paused, analyzing the transmission. Their language suggests they genuinely believe they're being generous. No signs they suspect our true capabilities. Admiral Chen's hologram paced, her face thoughtful. Their historiography shows every species they've encountered followed the same technological development path they did. They can't conceive of a civilization advancing along different lines. She stopped, turning to Sarah, which is exactly why we've spent the last 50 years preparing differently. While the Archon Empire had focused on brute force approaches, bigger ships, stronger weapons, faster drives, humanity had taken a different path. They'd mastered quantum mechanics, developed biological computing, created artificial gravity through space-time manipulation rather than raw power. Every technology they'd developed had been designed to be invisible to conventional scanning methods. They're launching probe ships, Sarah reported, watching new signatures break away from the main fleet. Standard patterns suggesting they expect minimal resistance. Should we show them why that's a mistake? Admiral Chen's hologram smiled. Not yet. Let them come close enough to see what we want them to see. Maintain emissy on controls. Execute Protocol Omega-7 on my mark. Sarah's hands flew across her quantum interface, preparing the automated defense systems. Humanity had waited decades for this moment. The Archean Empire was about to learn that not all species followed their predetermined path of development. Some chose to hide in plain sight, growing stronger in secret until the moment was right. Contact in 30 minutes, Sarah announced. The galaxy's about to get a lot more interesting. Admiral Chen's hologram nodded. Indeed it is, Doctor. Indeed it is. The probe ships continued their approach, their sensors probing what they thought was a primitive civilization barely worth their notice. Behind quantum shields and subspace veils, humanity's real forces waited silently. First contact was about to become first surprise. The Archean probe ships crossed Jupiter's orbit with the confidence of apex predators. Their scanners swept through space, cataloging what appeared to be primitive human satellites and early-generation fusion vessels. In their command center on Titan, Sarah and Admiral Chen watched the aliens' methodical approach through quantum feeds that showed far more than conventional sensors ever could. They're deploying their standard first contact package, Sarah reported, analyzing the energy signatures, targeting computers, weapon systems, shield generators, all powered up but running at minimal capacity. They're not even trying to hide their superiority. Exactly as expected, Admiral Chen replied. Time to give them their first surprise. Lieutenant Rodriguez, you have a go. Across the solar system, in what appeared to be an obsolete research station orbiting Mars, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez grinned. She'd been waiting months for this moment. Her fingers danced across neural interfaces as she activated the first layer of humanity's defense network. The Archean probes suddenly detected a power surge from the research station. Their sensors registered it as a catastrophic reactor malfunction, exactly what you'd expect from primitive fusion technology pushed beyond its limits. But what happened next defied their understanding of physics. The station disappeared, not through any recognizable form of cloaking technology or dimensional shift, but through a quantum state change that the Archean's sensors couldn't even begin to comprehend. When it reappeared microseconds later, it was directly between their probe ships, oriented in a way that should have been impossible given known laws of inertia and momentum. Their tactical networks are going crazy, Sarah announced, barely containing her amusement. They're trying to classify what they just saw using their standard paradigms. Their confusion is considerable. The Archean probes immediately backed away from the station, weapons charging. Their scans intensified, trying to understand how such a primitive structure could have performed such an advanced maneuver. But they were looking for the wrong things. Massive power signatures, exotic particle emissions, gravitational distortions. They found nothing because humanity's quantum technology operated on principles the Archeans had never considered. They're hailing us, Sarah reported. Their tone has shifted from condescension to concern. Admiral Chen nodded. Put them through. Audio only. Let's maintain the impression that we're still working with basic communication technology. The voice that filled the command center spoke in flawless English, though the underlying tension was clear. Human research facility, you have demonstrated technology that exceeds your civilization's expected development level. Explain immediately. Rodriguez's voice replied, carefully crafted to sound nervous and apologetic. This is Research Station Gamma. We're experiencing some technical difficulties with our experimental drive system. Please stand by while we attempt to stabilize our core reactors. Their flagship is moving, Sarah interrupted. They're dispatching additional probes. Sensors indicate they're preparing for a possible containment operation. Admiral Chen's smile widened slightly. Perfect. They think they've stumbled onto an unstable experiment. Time for Phase 2. Commander Phillips, you have the con. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be a simple mining operation suddenly came to life. Dozens of ships emerged from hidden quantum pockets, their designs unlike anything in the Archean database. They moved without visible propulsion, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Mining fleet actual to command. Phillips' voice was steady. Beginning standard asteroid extraction maneuvers. What followed was anything but standard. The mining ships began to dance through space, each movement precisely calculated to showcase capabilities that should have been impossible for a primitive species. They wove between asteroids, occasionally splitting apart and recombining in ways that violated every principle of conventional space combat doctrine. The Archean tactical networks are approaching cascade failure, Sarah reported with satisfaction. Their combat computers can't categorize what they're seeing. They've elevated our threat assessment 3 times in the last minute alone. Excellent, Admiral Chen replied. Time to drive the point home. Dr. Patel, initiate Protocol Omega-8. Let's show them what happens when they assume every species follows the same technological path they did. Sarah's hands moved across her console, activating systems that had waited decades to be revealed. Across the solar system, humanity's carefully orchestrated revelation continued, each demonstration carefully designed to shatter Archean assumptions while revealing only a fraction of their true capabilities. The game was far from over, but the first moves had been made. The Archons had arrived expecting to find simple prey. Instead, they were beginning to realize they might have stumbled into something far more complex and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The Archean flagship Eternal Dominion hung in space like a crystalline dagger, its sensors straining to understand the impossible data they were receiving. In the ship's strategic command center, High Commander Vexterra watched the holographic display with all four eyes narrowed in concentration. "Impossible," she muttered, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Their technological progression defies all known development patterns. Species simply do not advance this way." Her science officer, Callan, manipulated the sensor feeds with trembling appendages. "High Commander, I've completed my analysis of their mining fleet's movements. They're not using any known form of propulsion. No reaction mass, no gravitational manipulation, no dimensional folding. It's as if they're simply choosing to be in different locations." On Titan, Sarah watched the Archon's confusion through quantum interceptors that the aliens couldn't even theoretically detect. "They're scanning everything now," she reported to Admiral Chen. "Deep penetration suites, temporal analysis, even looking for signs of external technological contamination." "Let them look," Chen replied, studying the tactical display. "Every scan they run tells us more about their capabilities while revealing nothing of our true strengths. Have they found the quantum cores yet?" Sarah shook her head. "They're still looking for power sources they can understand. The idea that we've built our technology around quantum state manipulation rather than energy projection hasn't occurred to them. Their entire civilization is built on the principle of overwhelming force. They literally cannot conceive of our approach." The display suddenly shifted as the Archean fleet began to move. Their formation was perfect, a textbook example of tactical positioning, designed to demonstrate overwhelming superiority. Weapons platforms extended, shields shimmered into visibility, and tens of thousands of smaller craft emerged from launch bays. "A show of force," Chen observed calmly. "They're falling back on what they know. Dr. Patel, I believe it's time to introduce them to Project Chimera." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "Sir, are you sure? That's one of our most advanced systems. They need to understand that force isn't everything." "Activate the Jupiter defense grid." Around Jupiter's largest moons, arrays of quantum sensors that had laid dormant for decades quietly came online. They weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were something far more sophisticated. The arrays began to manipulate quantum states across vast distances, subtly altering the fabric of space-time itself. The effect on the Archean fleet was immediate and dramatic. Their perfect formation began to waver as ships suddenly found themselves experiencing different temporal flows. Weapons platforms that had extended smoothly began to stutter and jump as quantum fluctuations played havoc with their targeting systems. "By the Eternal!" Kalin exclaimed aboard the Eternal Dominion. "High Commander, our chronometric sensors are detecting temporal distortions, but they're unlike anything in our database. It's as if local space-time itself is being rewritten." Vexterra's scales shifted color in agitation. "Impossible. No species at their development level could possibly manipulate fundamental forces at this scale. Unless—" She paused, a disturbing thought forming. "Unless everything we thought we knew about them is wrong." In the Titan Command Center, Sarah watched the Archean fleet's confusion with satisfaction. "They're starting to understand, Admiral. Their tactical databases are being completely rewritten. Every assumption they made about our capabilities is being systematically broken." Chen nodded slowly. "Good. But remember, this is just the beginning. We're still only showing them the surface of what we can do. The real demonstration comes next." Across the solar system, humanity's quantum networks continued their subtle manipulation of reality. Each demonstration was precisely calculated, designed not just to showcase their capabilities, but to force the Archons to question everything they thought they knew about technological development. "They're sending another transmission," Sarah announced. "But this time it's not a demand. They're requesting a diplomatic channel." Chen smiled. "Now we're getting somewhere. Accept the transmission, but maintain protocol. Let's see how they handle dealing with a species that developed along a completely different path than anything they've encountered before." The game was shifting from demonstration to dialogue, but humanity held more cards than the Archons could imagine. The real question wasn't whether humanity could match the Archons' raw power. It was whether the Archons could adapt to a civilization that had chosen to transcend traditional concepts of power altogether. The diplomatic channel opened with a cascade of quantum-encrypted data that made the Archons' most sophisticated systems seem primitive by comparison. High Commander Vexterra found herself facing not just Admiral Chen's hologram, but an entire virtual environment that somehow existed between conventional spacetime states. "Impossible," Callan whispered, his scientific instruments struggling to comprehend what they were detecting. "They're not just transmitting data. They're manipulating the fundamental structure of reality to create a communication medium." "Welcome to neutral ground." Admiral Chen's image smiled, standing in what appeared to be a hybrid of physical and quantum space. "We thought it might be helpful to demonstrate a more direct example of how humanity approaches problems differently than the Archean Empire." Vexterra's scales rippled with a mix of emotions her species rarely experienced: uncertainty, fascination, and a growing sense of concern. "Your technological development defies all known patterns. This should not be possible." "And yet, here we are," Chen replied. "Perhaps it's time to discuss why your empire's assumptions about technological progression might benefit from some revision." In the Titan Command Center, Sarah monitored the quantum fields maintaining the diplomatic interface. Through her neural link, she could sense the Archons' attempts to analyze and understand the technology they were experiencing. Their confusion was almost palpable. "They're scanning everything," she reported to the command staff. "Their entire scientific database is being updated in real time as they encounter principles they never considered possible. But they're still missing the bigger picture." The bigger picture was something humanity had discovered centuries ago: that technological advancement didn't have to follow a linear path of bigger, faster, stronger. Instead, they had chosen to develop in ways that fundamentally altered how they interacted with reality itself. Suddenly, alarms blared across the command center. "Multiple quantum signatures," Sarah announced. "They're bringing their primary fleet through fold space." The space around Neptune's orbit erupted with energy as hundreds of massive Archean warships emerged from hyperspace. Each vessel was a city-sized monument to raw power, bristling with weapons that could shatter planets. "A curious choice," Admiral Chen's hologram commented mildly to Vexterra. "Are you attempting to impress us, or reassure yourselves?" The High Commander's response carried an edge of desperation beneath its diplomatic veneer. "The Archean Empire cannot allow an uncontrolled technological power to exist outside our understanding. You will submit to classification and regulation, or what?" Chen interrupted softly. "You'll demonstrate the superiority of your conventional weapons. Perhaps it's time we showed you why that would be inadvisable." She nodded to Sarah, who activated humanity's final demonstration. Across the solar system, quantum fields that had laid dormant for centuries came to life. Space itself began to shift and flow like liquid, conforming to patterns that existed outside normal physics. The mighty Archean fleet found itself suddenly displaced, not through any form of conventional movement, but through fundamental changes to the nature of space-time around their ships. Their weapons powered up, only to find that the very concepts of energy and matter had become fluid and uncertain in their targeting zones. What is this?" Vexterra demanded, watching as her fleet's most powerful weapons discharged into void spaces that shouldn't exist. "This," Chen explained calmly, "is humanity's approach to defense. We don't stop attacks. We simply ensure they occur in spaces where they can't affect us. Your empire built its technology around the manipulation of energy and matter. We chose instead to manipulate the fundamental laws that govern both." In the command center, Sarah watched as the Archean fleet's tactical networks tried desperately to compensate for what they were experiencing. Their sensors, designed to detect energy weapons and conventional threats, were useless against technology that operated on principles they couldn't even detect. Their entire command structure is in chaos, she reported. They're trying to apply conventional military doctrine to a situation that fundamentally doesn't work that way. Chen nodded. And that, High Commander, is why your assumptions about technological development need to be reconsidered. Humanity didn't follow your empire's path because we found a different one. One that your sensors can't detect, your weapons can't engage, and your strategies can't counter. The massive Archean fleet hung impotently in space, their most powerful weapons rendered irrelevant by humanity's control of the space between spaces. In the quantum-generated diplomatic chamber, High Commander Vexterra faced a choice that would reshape her empire's understanding of the galaxy. In the quantum-generated diplomatic space, High Commander Vexterra did something unprecedented in Archean history. She laughed. The sound, alien and strange, caught even her own officers off guard. In 10,000 years of expansion, she said, her scales shifting to colors that indicated profound amusement, the Empire has never encountered a species quite like yours. We thought we understood the fundamental laws of technological progression. We were wrong. Admiral Chen's hologram smiled. Perhaps that's the most important discovery any species can make, recognizing that there's always more to learn. Even now, you're only seeing a fraction of what humanity has achieved by taking a different path. On Titan, Sarah watched as the quantum fields around the Archean fleet gradually normalized, allowing their ships to re-establish conventional positions. The mighty armada, which had arrived ready to enforce the Empire's will, now hung in space like a testament to the limitations of traditional thinking. Their scientific division is analyzing everything, she reported, monitoring the quantum intercepts. They're particularly fascinated by how we manipulate space-time without massive energy expenditure. Should I show them? Chen nodded. Initialize the quantum visualization protocols. Let's help them understand. The diplomatic space transformed, becoming a living demonstration of humanity's technological principles. Complex mathematical equations and quantum state diagrams flowed through the air, showing how humanity had learned to work with the fabric of reality rather than trying to force it into submission. Extraordinary, Callan breathed, his scientific instruments recording everything. You don't overpower natural laws. You work within them, finding paths we never imagined existed. The energy requirements alone would be minimal, Sarah completed, joining the conversation. That's what makes our approach so different from yours. We learned early on that the universe has patterns and flows. Instead of building bigger engines and stronger weapons, we developed ways to understand and work with those patterns. Vexterra's scales shifted to deep blue, a sign of deep thought among her species. The implications for the Empire are significant. Our entire understanding of technological development needs to be reconsidered. The very basis of how we classify and interact with new species needs to change, Chen finished. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Humanity would be willing to share some of our insights, under the right circumstances. The quantum space filled with new projections, showing possibilities that made even the Archean's most advanced scientists gasp. Paths of development they had never considered, approaches to problems that redefine the very nature of those problems. A partnership, Vexterra said slowly, understanding dawning. Not submission or dominance, but genuine collaboration. Your species could help us understand these new principles, while we could offer insights from our own journey among the stars. Sarah's quantum sensors detected a fundamental shift in the Archean fleet's energy patterns, from battle readiness to something entirely new. Their weapons powered down, shields reconfigured to standard operation, and their entire posture changed from intimidation to curiosity. They're sending new data packets, she announced. Scientific inquiries, technological exchange proposals, requests for collaborative research projects. Their entire first contact protocol is being rewritten in real time. Admiral Chen's hologram nodded approvingly. The universe is vast, High Commander. Perhaps it's time for both our species to explore it together, each bringing our unique perspectives to the challenges ahead. Agreed, Vexterra replied, her scales now shimmering with colors that indicated excitement and anticipation. Though I suspect my reports to the Imperial Council will require significant explanation. The best discoveries usually do. Chen smiled. Now shall we begin discussing how two civilizations that took very different paths might help each other reach new destinations. As the diplomatic discussions continued, Sarah looked out at the vast expanse of space visible from Titan. The Archon fleet, which had arrived as potential conquerors, now represented something far more valuable, proof that different paths of development could lead to mutual understanding and growth. Humanity had prepared for conflict, but achieved something far more remarkable. They had shown an ancient empire that there was always more to learn, always new ways to view the universe. In doing so, they had not just protected Earth. They had opened the door to possibilities neither species had imagined possible. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if celebrating the moment when two profoundly different approaches to understanding the universe found common ground in their shared desire to explore its mysteries.